It's really hot in this room. These floodlights are just roasting me, but that's okay. Because we have our container of water. I think it's a... I don't know. This is an Erlenmeyer flask. Just let me inform you of this. Welcome to Day 9 Daily number 694, where we're learning how to be a better gamer by doing something counterintuitive. The answer, if your opponent starts building stalkers, is to build more hellions to trap them in the cycle of stalkering. It's insanity! Ah! Something that's kind of weird to do in terms of computation. If we look at the army size, well, I guess this isn't fair right now. But in a little bit, we can calculate things like, well, if there's 22 hellions, and they have 90 life, that's, what, 2,200 minus... Yeah, it's like a little under 2,000 life worth of stuff. It's a lot of hit points. And the stalkers don't actually deal very much damage at all. That's the foreshadowing for a battle that is soon to come. So Daishi's going nuts building just a boatload of hellions. He's getting tech labs and reactors and etc. Of course, the inimitable etc. This expansion has not really been amazingly different than this. It's just such a safe play. The big thing that Daishi's going to just know is that the opponent is going to be going Colossus. And even if he doesn't know, remember, we talked about this scouting thing that can go on. So Daishi's still just sticking on 3 gas geysers, is now getting blue flame, wonderful, boosting the efficiency of these hellions, still building hellions like crazy out of every factory that he can. And Grubby, it took him till the 11-minute mark to really be able to move out comfortably here. Now, any sane person upon seeing Colossus would probably stop building the hellions. But this is Boss Mech by Dayshi. Instantly building these Vikings up, just repairing the hellions, and you gotta admit that that's kind of a very intimidating force if you're in Grubby's shoes. Now, what we normally think is that Grubby has the perfect answer, the perfect counter army, but there's just a lot of hellions. I mean, look at the army value. If you actually add like 1,500 to this number, they're almost the same army in terms of just total value. Again, if we just mush these values together, almost the same. But stalkers just don't deal damage that fast, and hellions are a lot fatter than infantry. So I'm going to click on the stalkers first and smartly blink out of the way. Or, excuse me, the Colossus first, because the stalkers just blink out of the way. And then the stalkers just get totally roasted with absolutely no hope of running away at all. And there you go, in one of the most counterintuitive battles you could ever have. Oh, stalker dealing a little damage up there. Again, I really want this expansion to be back home. One of the most counterintuitive battles that you ever could see. Dayshi roasts that army. In Units Lost tab, we see that the Protoss has lost a lot more. Let's actually go to before that battle, because something that could be very deceptive is to say something like, oh, well, Dayshi was already in the lead. Look at the Units Lost tab. Almost nothing has been lost for either side, about 600 resources for each player. This is just a natural consequence of building hellions, because they just take so damn much supply. So I want to click on these stalkers. Let me actually go to normal speed. And we can see the effect of that first shot. The first shot of the stalkers against this, or the first shot of the hellions against this force, completely obliterated the shield on almost all the stalkers. Looks like there's only 4 that have half-ish left. And some of them haven't even fired yet. I mean, these roastings are happening at a really, really fast pace. And I'll even select the hellions so we can look at their health. we're just taking a look again and again and again at this moment in time and realizing, wow, this is actually not random, this is not luck. Grubby actually probably controlled this as great as somebody could. Front line of Hellions gets killed. So at this point in time, we've lost maybe 4 or 5 Hellions. You can see the Hellion numbers, especially to the Stalkers, aren't really taking any damage. Look at this flank of the army that's just not really taking damage. The Stalkers don't really do that much damage. Okay, great. Nice. And look at the lostness for Grubby. That line firing, so juicy, so good. I'm partially convinced that if you actually just went Hellion Viking, you could just take out a Protoss player. Just straight up. I think that you could actually continue to apply a great bit more pressure. Dayshi misses an opportunity to kill the Mothership core, but that's fine. That key battle highlights something incredibly important. That ability to just overrun with the seemingly wrong unit. Now, what I want to look at here is what I think is the one really yucky part of this entire transition. Now Dayshi suddenly wants to stop building Hellions, which is totally reasonable, and begin building beefier things like tanks. Oh yeah. Oh, the neck cracks. He wants to be going for the Tech Lab factory units. And again, never forget about the transformation service that can let all these guys turn into hellbats. But we'd like to have more tanks, and what we see out of Dayshi is that he abandons these reactors to go straight for the Tech Lab. Something that I think is totally, is actually going to be quite a bit stronger with this style for Dayshi, is that instead of going for so many reactors, to go for more factories with no add-ons early on. Something like 2 to 3 factories with reactors, and then 3... yeah, actually, it probably makes sense to have like 2 factories with reactors, 4 with nothing. 4 with nothing at all. To literally build naked factories without add-ons. And then to just throw down Tech Lab, Tech Lab, Tech Lab, Tech Lab. And then you can really rapidly transition straight into the factory stuffs. Straight into the tank production without having these weird, awkward junctures. Because in this position... this is just a little bit of money wasted, and now there's a lot of extra time that's being wasted moving these factories around. If we just simply saved this 100, and just built an extra factory with that money, here's the 2 with add-ons, we'd have approximately the same amount of Hellions popping out early anyways, and then we could flood out all the tech labs. And then we could straight up, within 25 seconds, be building tanks 4 at a time. Or whatever we wanted, 4 at a time. Everything else that Dayshi's doing is just delightful, just wonderful. See all these movements around where we got to abandon these reactors? I mean, totally correct to be going for the factories, but I think that, again, the naked factory is an uncelebrated tool for the Terran player. And now Dayshi just continues to mass Hellions and Vikings. Now, why would Dayshi continue to mass these units? Wait, am I zoomed in all the way? For some reason, things look very distant today. Maybe I'm depressed. But look at this. Total and utter map control. Grubby tried to take a step forward, and what a cost he paid. The fact that we have these Hellions does a couple more forms of forcing. And I think Grubby just does a brilliant job of this. He's building a lot of photon cannons. Like, a lot. Look, there's 2 in the main, 2 of the natural, and then 3 up here. He's going straight Stalker, Cannon, Colossus. If a player doesn't do that, then, geez, I mean, these are going to do huge damage. Even with them, they're going to do some damage. Absolute, utter, undeniable map control to Dayshi in this position. And then Dayshi begins to build up the scary force. Tanks, hellbats out of about 2 factories, and again, I think that he could have gotten away with a 4th factory without add-on, just to pump the units out. You might even go 3 and 3, like 3 tech lab, 3 reactor. But here we see Dayshi getting blinked on. And suddenly these hellions aren't going to be doing a lot of forcing and push backing. Suddenly it's going to be much more dedicated to waiting and building up a nice big old push. I do kind of think that in this spot, Dayshi does want to get this service. Because the hellion mode is so fast, controls things so hard in terms of space. But the hellbats they spread out a little bit more. They provide better coverage and they have more hit points against these tanks. But even without that, Grubby can't really do very much. And also notice how mobile this force is for Grubby. For Dayshi, excuse me. Dayshi just has so much stuff. And is just looking for nice angles to do things at. I like the fact that Daishi's pushing around maxed time. Again, I think Dayshi would have had some more benefit with hellbats in this spot versus hellions. But has what I would call the first relatively even fight of the game. Tanks can shoot Colossus. The Vikings were not over the tanks where they do need to be. And Dayshi just like picks up and goes home. He's like, no, not gonna, no, totally not. Totally. So again, we see this expansion that I really think could have been here just as successfully. And then with a faster fourth. And Dayshi at this point is fairly committed to his decisions. If we look at this minimap, he has to be in this area. Because his army is now suddenly not as mobile. His hellion count is very small. If you have a small amount of hellions, you don't really have a lot of mobility because they can't go places and answer scary threats. If you have like 40 hellions, then even huge threats you can go quickly answer. So the mobility of your army does depend on the number of hellions that you have. So now Dayshi, I think, is very smartly chilling right here by the watchtower because he has a slow-ass army. So all of a sudden there's this moment where if you're Dayshi, you're just like, I can't be pushing quickly at all now. Grubby taking this opportunity to begin to expand. And that's exactly what Grubby needs to do. The instant he starts to feel the speed of this army slow, he begins to expand like crazy much. So the wonderful benefit that Dayshi has on this position, on this map, is that it's very easy to get 4 bases. And I would say that's a pretty critical component to any successful mech, is the ability to secure 4 bases comfortably. I don't really think it's a super strong 3-base all-in strategy in the same way that the hyper-efficient Marine Medevac is. Nice pick by Grubby. I think the army for Dayshi is fairly straightforward. Hellbat, tank, Viking. Might even have a second starport here with a Tech Lab add-on. Banshees are also pretty solid thing to toss in this mix. Ravens. So now we have ourselves a relatively even game. But the interesting component to this is that any gateway unit really sucks against Mech. Like, real bad. So most of the ways that a Mech player will lose are to counterattacks or amazingly good engagements like this that occur before siege. So some of the things that Dayshi wants to consider right now is something like sensor tower, turret, and this widow mine here. Lock out anything from advancing over here via air. Also, turret. So important to just let this push stay focused. Because we are a slow-ass army. Next reasonable place for Dayshi to expand is actually right here. Is probably the most reasonable spot. This is kind of dicey up here. We see some attacking going on down here. Again, one of the big reasons why. Turret. Which, by the way, you will have the resources to do because you'll be maxed so often. This is actually a little easier to defend than anything. As odd as that sounds. This runs into the trickiness of being unable to attack. If you want to attack, then yeah, expand along the direction of attack, but we'll see more problems evolve up here on this top side. As Dayshi begins to get all the things. Planetary fortressing with, I suppose, sufficient bolstering would be okay. But we can see the consequences of Dayshi not getting anti-warp prism stuff. Because early on, very easy to deal with warp prisms. Later on, real pain in the ass. Dayshi has struggled to move more than a few inches up here at this top side. So, come on, Sir Dayshi. Come hither. Continuing to add things. Grubby being brilliant and just expanding and cannoning up heavily. There are a lot of immortals here. There are not any ghosts here. I don't really know the tremendous tangible benefit that the ghosts would give that hellbats at the front lines wouldn't. Hellbats are just a faster choice. Faster as in you can attack sooner. So again, if you're attacking here, you can kind of see how vulnerable taking this expansion is. Once it's all established in Planetary Fortress and solidly up, then yeah, there's some more stability. But I mean, we can see right here, you know, well, there's a pylon there. Well, what do I send here? Do I send, you know, like 2 hellbats? Okay, well, Stalker Warp In kills those off, and then you know you can Warp In Zealots and harass here again. It's really annoying to take faraway bases. Again, totally do not mind this expansion. Expanding, like, in your opponent's face is surprisingly effective with a mech strategy. Especially if you're staying focused on your pushing. Now, let me also note that there's an alternative way to do this, which is to do some heavy turtling here, put some planetaries here, and then to do, like, this path of attack up here. And to be really trying to control out like this. But you really kind of would need planetaries here to lock down this whole space. And then by virtue of that, this space. But this still is along the direction of attack. This sort of stuff makes me want to go play Terran. And oh, the most beautiful thing that, oh, I love this. Dayshi gets into an entrenched position and then chills, baby. Just chilling. So good. Immortals are not... Immortals, like, if units cost no money, Immortals would be pretty good against tanks. And pretty good against this composition. But Immortals cost a lot of minerals and gas and are hard to build up lots of. Very hard to get the number of Immortals very high. So if you have hellbats in the front line, which by the way are not armored, rather difficult for those to be able to deal much damage. And in I think a very, in principle was a very good move. I think the tanks sieging up here would have been better, not being so aggressive, but one of the hallmarks of just a solid mech player is one who does these very gentle break-offs with tiny groups like this to be able to apply pressure. I think this is a very intelligent idea. But what went wrong? Let's take another look at this. Do I need to pull back more? Actually, yeah, I should probably pull back to 2430. One of the coolest parts about Mech. One of the coolest parts about Mech is that you get really interesting tactical decisions to make. Like this. Guaranteed lockdown. What needs to happen? Scan here. If there's nothing, scan here. Keeping an eye on that army. Right now, there is plenty of energy to scan, and this idea is great, but this army being here would make this attack fantastic. Dayshi would get to establish himself, but Dayshi needs to keep the majority of this, the majority of his forces in one group. So something to note about the map here. Here's the attacker's path. Joink, joink. Very short. Here's the defender's path. It's easier to be the attacker. Mech should always be looking for opportunities to have a short attack back and forth, and then a long defender back and forth. Because right now, Dayshi could very well have done a scan to see the army in position, and just to know. So that's, I mean, it's a very simple error, but one that would make a tremendous impact. Dayshi would have had the opportunity to kill this expansion, and would have been able to retreat safely. Retreating is a scary thing, because if you unsiege and get trounced, then yeah, you have the bad times. So great. Dayshi is, oh yeah, look at those beautiful scans right now, and then starts to see this force move, and gets to siege up in just a great position. Blinking on tanks will kill your tanks, or excuse me, blinking on tanks kills your stalkers probably faster than anything else possibly will. We're going to see that one more time. Just, oh my god, don't blink onto tanks. It looks in your head like it'll be perfect, but I mean, they just get obliterated so fast. And has to do with the size of the stalker and the fact that they kind of bounce away from the tanks. If you blink on them, they'll sort of and stay spread away. So it doesn't actually do that much. Oh, I was on the minimap cam. Oh, fuck. Oh my god. Oh my god, shit. Let me show that one more time. Should never really blink on top of tanks, I was saying, because stalkers are big. And normally if you have zealots, like a zealot that was up here would literally be right within this box. Like, it would be on the tank. But stalkers don't really get very close, so even the splash damage doesn't really even kill this tank. It's the Colossus that winds up killing it. And the zealots, as you see, I mean, look at the zealot, is literally like infused inside the tank. So, yeah, great. So we see the immortals. Again, once the immortals get there, oh yeah, really rip stuff apart. But it's a pretty straightforward tank. Hellbat. Raven, I think, is just a brilliant choice because it detects the observers, which are the enemy of Mech. Grubby's doing just a delightful job expanding. I think that the Stalker, heavy Colossus stuff, a lot of the counterattacks, starving Mech is one of the strongest plays and just overwhelming it with too much stuff, getting those good storms in. Just delightful. So we again begin to see some of these issues that are arising with attacking in a way that doesn't defend our expansions. By the way, I'm not too worried about this hellbat stuff. There's going to be hellbat drops coming up, but I think that that's like the icing on the successful cake. So we see Grubby actually just taking a very clean opportunity to break a lightly defended position. One of the issues with meching on this particular map. So we'll go ahead and watch Dayshi and his attempted defense of this for a little bit. Immortals in mid, dealing a lot of damage now that they are up against the tanks. Once the hellbats get in the way a little bit, I mean, the immortals die pretty quickly. Because immortals just can't really do that much against hellbats. They're like a tank exclusive killer. This is pretty cool. Immortals are very good against Vikings. Look, immortals are immortal. Great. In this whole attack, although Dayshi did defend, this is the offensive maneuver for Mech. It's just so sexy. In the midst of a great battle, leaving a few things up top where they are wanting to deal damage. That's it. That's all you gotta do. Look at this. Left a Viking and accidentally got shot down. Oh shit, I hit the B button. So we're about to see this big counterattack. Whoa, here's the whole army. Let's go to the Dayshi cam. He recognizes there's a big force coming, and look at that sexiness. Just leaves those units there. So good, so elegant. Right now, Grubby basically has one base. 1 point, I guess, 2 bases or something. Here was the chase that we looked at. So good. Just fantastic. I just love this. Just chilling. And then realize, oh wait, no, let's just keep moving. Oh yeah, scan. Oh cool. So we're almost done with the game. The show went a little faster than I thought. So we're gonna take a brief break, come back, finish up, take questions, and be done by 8:20. Let's listen to some music.